All right. Hi, welcome. Glad you could make it. Good morning. My name is Samantha Thorstensen. I'm an education project manager with the ISS National Lab. And so let me go ahead and start sharing my screen. Dan Barstow is not able to join us today, so I'm going to change it up just a little bit. And one of the things I was going to do is share story time from space. It's one of a very popular program for children. They don't only record videos from the books that we've sent to station, but there's also cool activities and demonstrations that the astronauts have done that go along with the story. So, but first I'm going to explain a little bit about what Space Station Explorers is. It's a consortium of a bunch of different education programs that go to the space station. And so the ISS National Lab is managed by us, which is CASIS, the Center for the Advancement of Science in Space. But the Space Station Explorers is the education arm of that. So anytime there's any sorts of programs or projects or activities for students, we work with them. So if you go to spacestationexplorers.org, you'll see a few different tabs. When you go to education programs, there are a couple of dozen listed. Everything from Storytime from Space, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about today, as well as Tomatosphere, where we send tomato seeds to space and you can get them for free. Most of our programs are free unless there's hardware costs that you need. But we have those programs. You'll see Zero Robotics is one. There's A to Z. I always like to say we have A for ARIS, which is amateur ham radio on the station, where you can ask questions to the astronauts, all the way to Z for Zero Robotics, where you code a robot in space, which there's a middle school and high school program for. And again, that's free. You just have to start a team. They took a year off this year because they're switching over from that, where you see that round sphere. They switched over from spheres to Astrobee, so that's a little bit newer item. Then you can see everything from partnerships that we've had from Marvel and Guardians of the Galaxy to our newest one with Nickelodeon and Slime in Space. And you can take a whole field trip learning more and more about that. But please feel free to go to spacestationexplorers.org and dig in and learn all about the different programs. I love under the resource tab too is all the amazing videos that the astronauts have answered your most popular questions, like how do the astronauts eat in space? Where do they sleep? Where do they go to the bathroom? All those are answered on the resource tab under all the videos. So please feel free, again, go to the site, explore, enjoy, learn more. So Storytime from Space.
So sorry to interrupt. I can't hear you. I don't know, it might be an issue on my end though.
Oh, okay.
I know you're not on mute. I'm just wondering if, David, can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear her.
Okay, it seems like you two can hear each other. I don't know why I can't hear either of you, but that's fine.
Okay.
I'll figure that out on my end. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. Awesome, I'm glad you guys can hear us, and hopefully the recording's picking it up too. But Storytime from Space, again, it's K through 12. Some of the books are geared for younger students and older students. If you pick any of the Max Goes to Space books, Max Goes to Space Station, Max Goes to Mars, the Moon, they have more older student context in the margins of the book. So sometimes it's helpful to have that book. But they also do called science demos. So there's questions like, why do you get taller in space? What happens? And the astronauts kind of go through things like that. But I actually have Suzanne Slade, who wrote an amazing book, and she's going to kind of go through the journey of that book with you real quick. Her book is called Annie the Astronaut. Oops, sorry.
Hi, my name is Suzanne Slade, and I'm so excited you've decided to join me today to talk about some of my favorite things, which are space and books and other things. I've written over 100 children's books, and many of them are about space because I find the topic absolutely fascinating. But before we get into that, I always like to share my dog Corduroy because I believe I have the cutest dog in the world. Corduroy is also a big space fanatic. Now, you know how some dogs when they nap, sometimes their legs might twitch and people say, oh, they're dreaming about running through the fields. But when my dog Corduroy is napping, I know exactly what he's dreaming about. He's dreaming about soaring through space. I thought today I could answer some of the questions that I most often asked. And one of those questions is, why am I interested in space? And to think about that, we'll go back a little bit in time. Back here we are in ancient times. I'm in first grade. And my favorite subjects all through school were science and math. So, you know, after high school, you can go to college and you can study whatever you want. So I decided I wanted to study science and math, which meant I later became a mechanical engineer. And I worked for a company called McDonnell Douglas out in California, where I worked on rockets. I worked on Titan and Delta rockets and this spacecraft called the Delta Star spacecraft. So a big question I get asked is, why was Astronaut Annie, why was my book sent up into space to the space station? The space station is like a big home up in space, and here you see some astronauts living up on the space station. And they do a lot of things up there that you do in your home. For example, here they are eating dinner. See, there's a circular pizza. I'm not sure why their pizza is round, but it's floating, and they gather around their little table and they eat dinner together. They also, of course, sleep in space, and they have bunks where they slide into them and they sleep. Astronauts also do very important experiments. They're learning about different kinds of medicines, researching how plants grow in space. They also need to exercise to keep their bones and muscles strong. But you know, up in the space station, there's next to no gravity, so they float. So they have to be tied down on this treadmill so that they can actually run. Astronauts also read books up in space for a program called Story Time from Space. So I thought it would be fun if I could show you Annie's journey all the way up to the space station.
Oh, sorry.
And her journey began in the country of China, in this city where there are lots of factories, and that's where the book was printed. In the factory, they load the book covers, the cardboard covers, on one end of the assembly line. There go the book covers. And then those are fed into the assembly line one at a time. There they go down the conveyor belt. And where there are the pages of the book right here. And those pages get dropped into the book cover. And we see that this factory can make hundreds of books in an hour. Next, all of those books were loaded into a shipping container and put on a huge ship, and it came across the ocean. That boat arrived right here in Maryland. And then that metal container full of books was put on a truck, and they drove it up to Pennsylvania to a warehouse where the books were stored. But then they mailed a copy to me here in Chicago, and they asked me to write a note in the front of the book in case the astronaut wanted to read the note.